Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. We are tonight going to talk a little bit about the sacred seasons of life, which really at their core are a roadmap to deal with change. And if we know how to read the map, no matter what change that we're going through or we would like to go through, the only thing that we need to do is to identify where are we and where do we want to be. And by observing and taking in this roadmap, just those two things, where are we and where do we need to be, everything in between there can become very, very clear as long as we have that map. And I think if we're looking around at the world around us right now, it's going through massive amounts of change. We're going through changes in humanity that no one has ever experienced before in the history of humanity. There's some similarities. There are some foundational principles that are the same, but these types of changes are unprecedented in history. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about that roadmap for human change and how can we apply that to where we are and also where society is, where humanity is right now. And that way we can add our unique piece of that puzzle to the map, kind of help guide, help add some peace, add some reassurance to the people around us that don't necessarily have an understanding of the map and are not really sure that there even is a map. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here in just a minute. Share screen, here we go. Alrighty. We will go ahead and get started. So, oh, hang on, real quick, let me move this. There we go. All right, for real this time. Here we go. So, the seasons of well-being. There is a right time and a right place to put in certain steps, to put in certain focuses, to put in certain amounts of energy in order to get the right outcome. So just recognize that sometimes whenever we need to make a change, if we're putting our focus on the wrong step, or if we don't even know the right step or where to place it, then it's going to be a struggle and we're going to end up tripping over ourselves. So these seasons are the map and the order of the steps that typically occur. Now, some of these steps, they can happen unconsciously. They can just be effortless and just flow right through. And before we notice, we've taken like 20 steps. And then other steps, other stages of this process, we may struggle with, and it may take us a lot longer to take a specific step, whereas other steps just go so quickly. So none of these steps individually are more or less important than any of the other steps. But if we kind of know the overview and we know ourselves, we'll be able to recognize which steps happen effortlessly just because we're really good at them. And then which steps do we need to put a little bit more focus on, a little bit more awareness? Do we need to build a little bit more of a relationship with these different steps or stages? So just like I said before, with any map, the key, the challenge, the fun part is to recognize and accept where we are here and now and where we want to be. Some of us are going to be really good at identifying where we want to be or where we should be or where we're going to be in the future. But then dealing with where we are now might be a little bit more of a challenge. Identifying where we are might be a little bit of a challenge. We might kind of confuse ourselves. We might kind of distract ourselves, really wanting to be in this other place so badly that we are kind of disillusioned as far as where we are. Others of us are going to be very, very good at identifying where we are. We're going to be super proud of where we are right now. But then when we think about where we need to be, where we could be, where we will be, it's going to be scary. It's going to be like, oh my gosh, that is so outside of my comfort zones. So just acknowledge that we are going to have one end of the spectrum, either where we are or where we need to be, that's going to be fun. And the other side of the spectrum is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So in knowing this, if we can recognize which type of person we are, we always want to go where the energy is first. We always want to go to what is energizing, what is enjoyable, what's uplifting, and then go back to the other end of the spectrum. So if we love dreaming about the future, if we love imagining all the potentials and all the possibilities, that's where we need to go to first. And then come back and really be honest and brutal about where we are right now. And then again, if we're that other type of person, we need to really own where we are, just get super proud and excited about where we are and all of the things that led up to where we are right here and right now. And once we get supercharged, once we get super excited, then start to think a little bit about where we're going to need to be in the future. So again, whichever one of those spectrums energizes you, whichever one excites you, go there first and then come back to the other side of the spectrum. Okay, so these seasons, we call them seasons because there is a different time to do different things. If you show up in Colorado Springs in the dead of winter and you're wearing your swimsuit and you're wearing your snorkel gear, you're going to have a little bit of a challenge enjoying the moment. You're going to have a little bit of a challenge enjoying where you are. You're going to be might be a little bit disappointed because you're like, man, I want to go swimming. I want to jump in. I want to be soaked in water right now. But if you're not acknowledging the season that you're in right now, it's going to be a challenge. Okay. If you do acknowledge the season that you're in, you show up in Colorado Springs during the wintertime, you're going to be ready to go snowboarding. You're going to be ready to go skiing. You're going to be ready to enjoy what's happening in the here and now. The best way to screw ourselves up, and the most common reason that humans suffer, is because we do not accept and acknowledge reality as it is. And because we don't accept and acknowledge reality as it is, we give up our ability to work with it, to work in it, to influence, to move with it, to flow with it. So acknowledging the season that we're in is necessary in order for us to figure out, well, what's going to be the next few steps? All right. So we can kind of think of these three seasons. And I say three seasons because there's three primary seasons: discover, transform, and awaken in network spinal care, which is the type of chiropractic that we do at Organic Living Chiropractic. That fourth season, though, is called the season of integrate. In integrate, when we have really felt, when we've experienced each one of the three other seasons, integrate, we can mix and match strategies. We can acknowledge where we are, and we can pull strategies from different seasons in order to progress even faster, even smoother, even more efficiently and effectively, to kind of transverse that roadmap of change as quickly and as effectively as we possibly can. But we're not going to be able to do that until we experience, not just think, not just know, not just have concepts, but actually experience these other three seasons of change. Okay, so discover is kind of like the season of winter. In winter, especially here in Colorado Springs, there's not a lot to do. Okay, it's a very much of an introspective time. It's very much of a time to kind of focus, to tune in, to hunker down, to really acknowledge what's going on inside of ourselves and around ourselves. Okay, transform is kind of like the season of spring and summer. It's very active. There's a lot to do. We're planting, we're getting ready, we're growing, we're making things happen. And we need that season of introspection. We need that season of discover in order to know exactly what we're going to be doing in that productivity season, in that spring and summertime. And then awakens kind of like the fall. It's this magical time of harvesting, of reaping all the rewards and all the benefits from that growth that we just went through. And the colors are just so much more vibrant and amazing and diverse. And it's an amazing time to live. But guess what? Winter comes back around again. So one of the fun things about these seasons is that we will experience them multiple times throughout our lives in different parts of our lives. We are multi-dimensional beings. We are multifaceted beings. So you may be in one season, let's just say in your social life, and a total different season in your professional life or your intimate romantic life. So just acknowledge that when you're reading this map, whenever you're going through and really identifying where are you and where you need to be, understand that that can be very different if you're looking at different parts of your life. Okay, so don't just get caught up into this is the only thing that's going on, because there's a lot more going on than any of us can even imagine, much less work with. So the season of discover. Okay, discover is really about tilling the soil. It's really about getting down and dirty into the foundations of who we really are at our core and what's really going on. And what makes the best fertilizer? Well, it's shit. So most of us run screaming from the season of discover. We avoid discover with every ounce of our strength because discover can be really shitty. And the reason why it's really shitty is because discover is all about acknowledging what's wrong. What is preventing us from making progress? What is preventing us from going with the natural flow of life, of ourself, of our own unique process and progress? So discover can be very scary because it's all about the unknown. And when we resist change, when we resist the unknown, and the unknown and change are very intimately linked. There can be no change, no growth within our comfort zones. We have to go outside of the known. We have to go outside of our comfort zones in order to grow, in order to become more effective, more efficient, stronger, wiser, all of those things that all of us really want in our lives, but few of us really want to push those boundaries of the known. We don't want to push outside of our comfort zones because, hey, comfort's really nice. So life has this really funny way of shoving us out of our comfort zones when we've resisted change for a long time. And the second we get out of our comfort zones, especially if we haven't chosen it, that's where suffering is, because we're like, oh no, things are all of a sudden bad. Something's wrong. I'm not sure what it is. So in discover, we have to come to the acceptance that we have been avoiding acknowledging something that is inhibiting our growth. Discover, we really have to get in and find all of those things that have been preventing our growth in the past. Okay, discover is a time to be super raw. It's a time to be super real, and we have to experience the pain. For most of us, we have to experience the pain in a raw, real, and honest way in order to kind of get up the courage to move outside of our comfort zones, to let the old go, to let comfort go, so that we can get into a much better place, into a better state, into a more expansive version of ourselves. But discover is not the time to think. It's not the time to make decisions. It is the time to just be with what is, all right? It's time to increase our awareness. Now, remember that the body is a survival machine. And in survival-based situations, the known is always preferable to the unknown, even if the known is dysfunctional. Okay, knowing exactly where that tiger lives is super important for survival. All right. But if the only thing that we do is just hang around that tiger's den because we know where it is, we're choosing to live in a dysfunctional environment. But to the body, that's what the body will typically choose. So we're going to need to use this amazing prefrontal cortex that we have, this mind that we have, this higher being that we have, and acknowledge that, yes, the body is always going to drive us towards the unknown, but there is no growth. The body is always going to drive us towards the known, but there is no growth in the known. Okay, we have to acknowledge that our known many times is dysfunctional in order to embark on the journey into the unknown. All right. So in Discover, we have to acknowledge that something's wrong. We have to acknowledge that we are totally currently helpless in fixing what's wrong. We have to acknowledge and really experience the feeling that no matter what we do, it's just not working. Okay, we have to fully experience and embody that it really does seem like it's never going to change. If we can't come to that experience, if we cannot acknowledge that we are having that experience, we're not going to embark on the journey of change. We're not going to get outside of our comfort zones. There's really going to be no push to get outside of that. So the biggest mistake that most of us do that keep ourselves suffering, that literally creates disease in our body after a while, that creates dysfunction in our environment, is trying to convince ourselves that we've got it all covered, that we're totally enough, that there's nothing wrong, that this is not a problem, that I'm not helpless in the way that I am. I'm totally fine. That there's nothing wrong with this. When we convince ourselves of those things and it's time to change, we end up prolonging our suffering. We end up making things worse for ourselves. So acknowledging that sometimes it seems like I'm helpless. Sometimes it seems like nothing's ever going to change. This is not giving up. This is not the same thing as just saying, oh, well, this is just how life is and I just better put up with it. No, it's preparing ourselves to use the discomfort for fuel, to use the pain in a totally different way, to experience the pain in a totally different way. So we really, really, really have to acknowledge and own the season of Discover if we want to get to a much better place in life. And we can move through the season of Discover in an instant, as long as we can acknowledge and learn the lessons that Discover has to offer. We do not need to spend much time there. But in order to not spend much time there, you got to really know Discover. You got to understand it. You got to embrace it. All right. So in Discover, we have to understand, we have to accept that we are not as connected as we previously thought that we were. All right. There is a lot of pain in acknowledging that we're not whole, that we're fractured, that we've been using certain parts of ourselves too much, and we've been underutilizing or rejecting or even demonizing other parts of ourselves. This is painful to acknowledge this. Now, the pain's always been there. But looking at the pain is really just kind of dropping into it and going, yep, I am in pain. I am acting as a fractured version of myself. Okay, avoiding pain does not mean avoiding pain, ignoring pain is not the same thing. It's not the same strategy as discovering the solution to the problem that's causing our pain. All right, the only strategy that we need, the only strategy that actually even works, the only solution that works in the season of Discover is what we call AAA. That means become aware, acknowledge what you've become aware of, and accept what you've acknowledged. Aware, acknowledge, and accept without trying to change it. That's the hard part. That's the acceptance part. So if we do have a symptom, if we do have a problem, if we do have a pain, if we do have an emotion that we're struggling with, if we do have something in our environment, we have to become aware of it, and we have to accept it as it is. If we don't accept it as it is, if we don't develop a relationship with it, we're not going to know how to really influence it. We're not going to know how to impact it. We're not going to know how to bring forth the most applicable solution if we don't become aware of it. So most of us, again, I'm going to repeat this, most of us spend a lot of energy trying to avoid or distract ourselves from pain, when reality, in order to get through it to the other side, we have to accept it as it is without trying to change it. That's the first step. Okay. Discover is very much of a pre-rational season. It means that we need to acknowledge our body and our environment, not just run around spinning our wheels with our mind, imagining, hoping, distracting, becoming comfortable, all of those things that our mind and our ego loves. That our mind and our ego kind of has to take a back seat. The body needs to speak and the mind needs to listen. And again, this is a very opposite way of going about things than most of us, especially in our Western Americanized culture, is really used to. We're used to being mind, identifying with a mind, and then dragging a body around. And this is one of the main reasons that the biggest killers in our society right now are chronic degenerative diseases, because our body's not able to tell us what's going on. Our body's not able to tell us what it needs to regenerate faster than the stress that we place it under. And let's be honest, like, we live in really, really good times. We don't have tigers running around chasing us. If you turn off the news, like, microorganisms are not taking out vast majorities of the population, although the news will try to convince you of that right now. We really don't have it bad in our society. So why is it that our bodies are wearing down? The biggest killers in our society right now are lifestyle related diseases. Like, this is crazy. We're choosing to wear our body down faster than it can regenerate. So in order to reverse that ratio, we're going to have to stop acting and being and identifying only as a mind and just dragging a body around. And we're really going to need to drop into the body itself, develop that better relationship with the body, because the body knows how to regenerate itself. The body knows how to heal itself. The mind does not know how to do that. So we really have to get back into a more functional dynamic. And that means dropping into the body. And after a while, when we've ignored the body for a long, when we drop into it, when we really start listening to it, it's not going to be saying nice things to you. Probably going to be cussing at you a little bit, but you're going to have to sit there and be with the body, acknowledge the body, listen to what the body has to say, even though it's not nice things, in order to be able to develop that relationship where the mind and the body can be in harmony, where neither one's driving the other one into being worn down faster than regenerate. The lesson that we have to learn in Discover is that by trying to move away from pain and discomfort, we've actually caused more pain and discomfort, not only for ourselves, but for those around us. Recognize nothing stays the same in life. All right. So when we are avoiding change, when we're trying to stay comfortable as our main goal, instead of being the best version of ourselves, being the most effective, efficient, wisest version of ourselves, when our goal is comfort, we are going to end up resisting change. And because life is change, the body and the mind are going to scream at you. They're going to send off those warning signals to say, hey, the way that you're going about life is not working. All right. So when we resist change, it's supposed to suck. It's supposed to hurt. And if we can acknowledge this and embrace this and go, up, the pain's here for a reason, we can move beyond the need for pain by jumping into the right type of change. But again, the season of Discover is acknowledging that we are in pain. We are in discomfort. Something does need to change. So the goal of Discover is to find a new and novel relationship between avoidance, dissociation, and pain. Use them for what they are. And then again, we can move through the season of discover very quickly. In discover, there's three kind of basic states or stages. Number one is shock. Oh crap, things are not as great as I thought they were. Okay, shock, the first stage of discover, we get so overwhelmed and we're so much in pain that there's very little for energy for anything else. It's just like this, oh help, oh this sucks. All right. But again, if we can acknowledge that, if we can really be with that, if we can stop wasting our energy trying to get away from that, then we'll be able to move through it. And on the other side, the next stage or step is the blame game. Oh no, something's wrong and it's definitely somebody's fault. All right. Who needs to change? I know somebody around here needs to change. This is not, oh man, this is just terrible. But them over there, oh, that's where my salvation is going to be. That's where the change is going to happen over here. So the blame game really is about this villain, victim, hero cycle in which we're pointing our finger everywhere around outside of us. Okay. We're pointing our finger at everyone and everything that needs to change, except the one thing that we have control over, which is ourselves. All right. But in this second stage, this second step, there's still not energy for change yet. Okay. There's just enough energy to start to think about what's the cause, what's the fault, what's at blame. All right. Now, ironically, it's really, really funny how much of our time and energy goes into trying to control other things and situations and scenarios that we really don't have control over. So one of the secret weapons when we notice that we're in the blame game is laughter, is humor. That can add a lot of energy into our system so that we can get to this next stage, which is the very final and end stage of discover, which is acceptance and ownership. Oh, crap. I'm the one that needs to change. I'm the one that keeps repeating this same cycle. I'm the one that keeps demonizing these different parts of myself. I'm the one that's not acknowledging that I need to grow. I need to change. I need to move forward. Something that I need to embrace is preventing me from growing. So once we move through those different three stages or steps of discover, then we can move into transform. And transform, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the change actually happens. We have enough energy, we have enough information to start enacting change. Transform is all about new behaviors. Okay, now sometimes in the later stages, these new behaviors will be based on what we've learned. But in the beginning, it's just like, okay, I just got to make these changes. I just got to move forward. I just got to change. And again, that's very beneficial in this first stage of transform because it breaks the habits of the old and it builds momentum, okay, as we're moving forward. So transform is all about building and growing something new. It's all about an identity. There's now a me here. In discover, there's really only a problem. And then there was only a problem and a cause for the problem. Okay. In transform, there's a me that can actually move through this. And in transform, we have enough energy to start to see the situation more as an opportunity to change. Where in discover, it's only a painful problem. Okay, we need to embrace this different. We need to acknowledge and move towards a bigger and better self-image, relationship, or career. All right. In transform, there's no going back to the old ways. All right. We're growing towards the new. All right. Because we've already accepted, we've already acknowledged that moving away from what we don't want, just trying to be comfortable is not working anymore. Now we're actually moving towards what we do want. All right. And transform is all about being conscious and present. There's no more autopilot. There's no more going off of the pre-programs that were placed into us whenever we were growing up. And these pre-programs, sometimes they didn't even come from our family. They might have even come from our ancestors. All right, so accepting fault for the past is not necessarily something we need to do, but we do need to accept responsibility for changing it, and transform is when the season that we have enough energy and information to start doing that. All right. We are making it happen in Transform. There's determination, there's courage, there's momentum. These things are now our fuel for moving forward. All right. These are opportunities all around us for change, more energy, more awareness. All right. In Discover, which really all about identifying and avoiding problems. Transform is all about the opportunities for growth, building, and change. Okay. We are compelled to create a bigger vision than what we used to think we were, or what we used to think the best of life can be. It's time to now become a someone. Whereas in Discover, really what we're suffering from is being a no one, being this fractured version, but having the potential of really being whole. All right. Again, there's 3 stages or steps in Transform. Number 1 is the first one, which is, again, just change for the sake of change. Enough of this. I deserve better. I'm going to move forward. I'm just going to make as many changes as I possibly can. Just breaking the patterns from the old, burn all the bridges, because there's no way I'm going back. And then once we start making enough momentum, once we start moving forward enough, once we start burning enough of those bridges and breaking those old habits, we really start embodying the new. The new version of us starts to become a little bit more of the norm, a little bit more comfortable. This process of making progress and letting go of the past becomes more of the norm. All right. And then in the final stage of Transform, we can really revel in the success. We can really revel in all of the changes that we've made. But that's not the end. Because once we've become super successful, once we have become very, very productive, at the end of that, ultimately, what we're going to come to is that all that productivity really does not identify who we truly are. It doesn't define who we truly are. Even though our life is so much better than what it was, there's still something missing. We're super successful, but like it's not as good as we thought it was going to be. Okay. And this is a beautiful place to come to, because at this stage, we can finally let go, okay, and truly embody who we actually are instead of building this identity. But we have to build an identity. We have to, in a sense, build kind of a created version of ourselves in order to have some kind of contrast to determine who we truly are. All right, we have to have some mirror to look into and say, does this fit? Does this not fit? Okay, and the best mirror is kind of the one that we've built for ourselves. So most people in life throughout humanity's existence have really gone through this cycle of discover and then transform, and then back to discover and into transform, and then back to discover and into transform. This loop of making progress. Oh no, it's not good enough. And then dropping back into discover. However, there's been a few individuals. Now, these individuals have been historically the monks, the nuns, the holy people. They have taken themselves out of the world. They've lived off in caves or monasteries, and kind of cut themselves off from society. And so they really could drop into the essence of who and what they truly are. Okay, so this stage, this 3rd season, for most of history has been inaccessible. But now we need this 3rd season. We need a lot of people getting into this 3rd season, and we need people getting into this 3rd season while they are still engaged in the real world, while they're still engaged with their family, while they're still engaged with society, so that they can continue to move society forward with all of the energy that comes in this 3rd season, which is called the season of awakening. All right. So we have to understand, in order to get to awaken, that all of the things that we build, all of the comforts, all of the success is really all an illusion. It's all a way of us building this ego structure, building this identity. And one of the theories is that we do that in order to avoid thinking about death, avoid thinking about our own demise. But once we do embrace this, once we do start thinking about death, thinking about the end, that gives us the opportunity to really acknowledge who and what we are and what's really, really important in life. Okay, moving into awaken requires us embracing community. It requires us embracing uncertainty. It requires us embracing death. Okay, and embracing the fear of never being enough. Because each one of us is a unique puzzle piece in the whole. The whole cannot be complete without our authentic expression. And at the same time, the whole will not be expressed by only one puzzle piece. So all of us need to acknowledge that alone we're not enough. But the forces of creation, the forces of the universe, the force of who we truly are together as a whole, that is enough. We don't have to struggle. We don't have to strive. All we need to do is just express our unique gifts, express our passion, express our love. And enough of us together doing that will be able to do way better than just survive. We'll be able to thrive. We'll be able to get to places. We'll be able to bring society, bring humanity into places it has yet to explore. It has yet to be able to experience. Okay, so awaken is a place that most people want to be in, or they say that they want to be in. It's a place of love. It's a place of bliss. It's a place of passion. It's just this amazing, we get to really embody the authentic version of ourselves, love life fully, all right? However, there is a large responsibility that comes with awaken. Because when we are in that awakened state, if we are not expressing the fullest version of ourselves, if we're not giving our greatest gifts, because awaken is all about that interconnectedness, we will absolutely feel the pain around us and within us of not having developed ourselves fully. So if we don't fully go through discover and honor and acknowledge those parts of ourselves that we have not developed, if we don't fully go through transform and really develop ourselves to our fullest extent, to our fullest potential, then if we jump into awaken too soon by utilizing drugs, by utilizing excessive meditation techniques, by tricking ourselves into thinking that everything is supposed to be this light and love all the time, if we try to jump into awaken before we've really honored and mastered those other seasons, awaken can be extremely painful as we drop back down into discover. So what we want to do is we want to get to awaken. We want to be in this awakened state for moments at a time to get ourselves fueled enough so that we can drop back into the world and share our light, share our love, and help everyone around us, because awaken is about that interconnected state. And until all of us can live in this awakened state, then none of us are going to be able to fully experience this all the time. So awaken is a great place to visit. It's an amazing capacity to have, to go there whenever you want to, whenever you need to. But it's not a place to live. It's not a place to stay. It's a delusion. If we stay in any one of these seasons for too long, that's a problem. There's a pathology there. There's a dysfunction there. We need to flow through the seasons according to the flow of life, what's needed in the moment. Where are we? Where are our surroundings? Right. So awaken, the best way that I could describe the awakened state is this ancient Greek proverb, which says, a society grows when old men plant trees whose shade they know they will never sit in. This is how you know someone has access to the awakened state, because they are having big impacts on the world around them. The impacts of which they will probably never see the full extent in. But they're so driven, they're so fueled, they're so loving that they're continuing to pour themselves into these things that, again, are going to be much, much bigger than themselves. An amazing and accurate way to recognize when someone is in a delusional awakened state, when they're in a false or pseudo awakened state, is they're talking about all the light, they're talking about all the love, they're talking about how amazing everything is, and yet they're not really having a big impact on those around them. They're not uplifting everyone around them. They're doing a lot of talking, but they're not doing a lot of walking. So remember, awaken is not an idea, it's not a concept, it's a state of being. And one of the fruits, one of the hallmarks of that state of being is a massive impact on the world around you. In awaken, like I said before, we really experience this this interconnectedness. And again, there's a huge responsibility that comes with interconnectedness. When you know that everything is linked to everything else, every thought that you have affects everything, every feeling that you have affects everything, there is no more room for having bad days. Okay, we don't have the privilege, we don't have the luxury of stewing in our own self-pity and the woe is me, because we recognize how much that affects not only ourselves but everyone around us. All right. So this means that when we get to this awakened state, again, if we've done it correctly, we've acknowledged discover. And so we can move through those self-pity. We can move through that suffering very, very quickly. And we need to do that because, again, it affects ourselves and everyone around us. All right. In awaken, we truly are able to experience and to live out that mind, body, and heart connection. All right. We live the true, authentic version of ourselves, or as close to it as we're able to express in the moment. And awaken, again, is about participating profoundly. It's not about just sitting there being blissed out. It's about actually getting in the game. Okay, awaken in the past has been called enlightenment. It's been called self-actualization. So when we're reading some things from other cultures or from history, this is whenever we hear those terms. That's really what this is. Those terms are referring to, is this awakened state that we work with in Network Spinal. The real you in awaken shines forth. And whenever I say the real you understands and knows that all of the different roles, all of the different masks, all of the different identities that you've built in life are very beneficial. They're very practical for engaging in the real world, but they're not the real you. The real you has the ability to pick up any role, to pick up any identity, to pick up any personality trait at will, whenever it's beneficial and necessary to utilize it, and to put it down whenever it's not beneficial, whenever it's not necessary to utilize it. Okay. The real you actually has no personality. It's just a state of being. Personalities are defense mechanisms. These archetypes that certain psychologists have described. Many people want to embody specific archetypes, but if we embody only a specific archetype, if we're not moving through all of the archetypes, that's a sickness, that's a pathology. There's something wrong with that. That's not the full potential of who we truly and what we truly are up underneath it all. Okay, so in awaken, we acknowledge that we are a soul, not just a role. Okay, these the fruits of all of our hard work. Okay, we start to harvest those, and what we start to acknowledge as we share all of those fruits is that really it's not about the hard work. It's really about the expression of who we truly are. And there's so much energy in expressing who we truly are. There's so much energy in doing things out of love and passion. We acknowledge that change happens, but it's not effort. It's not hard work in order to enact those change. We can literally move through life and have a big impact effortlessly because there's so much congruence. There's so much coherence. There's so much energy in being who we truly are rather than just trying to make it and force it. Okay? You get to master being. And that is your greatest gift to the world, is who you truly are. Okay, again, in Awaken, there are these 3 steps or these 3 levels. And the first one is sacred humility, where we are just totally humbled and in awe about how magical the universe, existence, creation actually is. We are humbled and in awe about how it continues to work, it continues to flow, it continues to give. And it doesn't necessarily need us to force it or to change it or to make it happen. We are just humbly in awe of how amazing things actually are. Okay. The second stage, or that middle part of the Awaken, is that our beingness is the purpose. Being the authentic version of yourself is the meaning of life. And that's your greatest gift to yourself and to the world. We let go of this need to try, the need to fit in. Because again, if we're trying to be like some other puzzle piece, we're not going to be able to create the whole picture. Okay? We have to be our puzzle piece to know where we fit in. But no one else is going to be like us. So that last and final stage of Awaken is the oneness, where we really get to experience how it's all interconnected, how we all fit in. And again, experiencing the oneness is a very big responsibility, because that means that we have to take our part in that. And lastly, this season of Integrate, once we've gone through, once we've experienced, not just thought about, not just heard about, but actually experienced each one of the other seasons, we're going to be able to consciously pick and choose which strategies, which skills, which roles are most appropriate and most beneficial for this time and space that we're in right now. Okay, it's really where we're going to take all of the bliss and all of the love from the higher states, and we're going to bless those lower states. Okay, we're going to bless those people that haven't been able to experience all of the stages. We're going to bless those people that may be stuck, that may even be causing us or others pain, because we can acknowledge really where they are. And we can acknowledge that at some point, a part of us was there too. And so we don't need to demonize them. We don't need to villainize them. We may not be able to continue to be very close to them in their present, space. But at the same time, we'll be able to bless them however we are able to do that. Okay, we're going to be able to bless this drive to accomplish this, bless the power structures, bless the organizations in society that have actually brought us to the state that we're in. Right? A lot of times we just want to demonize what doesn't work anymore. But unless we're going to build what works better, we're going to have to acknowledge why those things are in place, what benefits do they give, and how can we take what's good, how can we take what's working and bring it forward into the new structure. We can't just let it all go in free fall. All right. So when we have gone through all of the other stages, we're going to be able to fully meet other people where they are without necessarily compromising where we are. Because again, we have that fuel from Awaken. All right. So in Network Spinal, we work with what has been coined by Dr. Donny Epstein, which is the developer of these Sacred Seasons and Network Spinal, which is a technique of chiropractic. We work with the what's called the epi-energetics, the epi-energetic field. And epi-energetics is the conscious and ecological use of energy and information to produce the extraordinary. And that's really what we and everyone around us deserves, is the most extraordinary version of ourselves possible. But in order to get that, in order to get the most extraordinary version of ourselves, in order to get the most extraordinary version of society, we need to be ecological in our use of energy and information, which means not wasting it. And it also means utilizing it where and when we need to. Right? Each season has its own unique flavor. And that can be enhanced. That flavor can be added to by combining different ways and different strategies and different things. But again, in order to get to this place where we can add to and combine and move effectively and efficiently and be super ecological, we have to really experience and really embrace and really embody each aspect of these seasons. All right. So thank you everybody for joining in tonight. Again, this is just to help us kind of understand a little bit more, not only about life, but what we do here at Organic Living Chiropractic and how we help people move into the most functional version of themselves and the best version of their lives possible. So I'm going to go ahead and close this down and ask if anybody has any questions. And as we are looking for questions, if you're on the Zoom call tonight, you can type these questions into the chat. If you are on Facebook, you can go ahead and type those in also. But if not, oops. Oh, there we go. If nobody has any questions, I'm just going to thank everyone for joining us. I'm going to thank everyone for tuning in. Please, please, please like our Facebook page. Go to Organic Living Chiropractic on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share this video with anybody that you feel would benefit from it. And hopefully, we will see you very, very soon, either in person at Organic Living Chiropractic or in digital land somewhere. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you soon.